Hello everyone! We decided to release our US episode sooner due to recent sad events and following protests. We will talk about this situation with our today's insiders.
Our first guest is Dario. He's from Washington D.C. He's a businessman. He owns a nightclub and a tourist apartment in Washington, both industries being severely hurt by the pandemic. So, in this situation, he decided to find a solution not only for himself, but also for the people in need. And in collaboration with his partners, he started to distribute the medical supplies.
We will also talk to Michael from LA area who creates innovative housing solutions that he describes as more fun, affordable, healthy, and environment friendly.
How are you girls doing today?
As you see, we traveled all the way to Washington D.C.
I am glad. I hope we could meet for brunch, but sadly, we can't.
Yeah, a virtual one.
Exactly,
Online.
that is true.
How is your day? How did it start?
It's been a good day, Every day is a good day. So I just started with a quick meeting, took my dog out for a walk, and I'm back at it.
You have a dog? Can you show it to us?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Wait. Look, say hi.
Oh, you look
He's
so
tired. He
nice.
went for a long run yesterday. Right, Blue?
He
Say
looks
hi.
tired, like he had a good walk.
Yes.
Pets were like basically your companion in today's situation, because that was somebody people could spend time with in isolation, right?
Oh, absolutely. Especially for those like me that live by myself. This pet has been for me very, very good in this lockdown. And it's actually brought me a lot of positive feelings because, it makes me create a routine of, taking him out 4 or 5 times a day. And for a lot of people, for example, here in Washington, D.C., all the pet rescue centers, they would have a hard time just getting people to rescue dogs and make them their own. And after the first week of quarantine, they ran out of animals.
Mm.
They had
Wow.
like no more pets. And that was something that I thought it was something very good.
Were there any restrictions on going out in Washington? Because
Yes, there were very strict restrictions. So one of the parts that hit the worst in the United States was New York. And after New York, it was Washington, D.C. And the restrictions were actually pretty shocking because from night to day, it was like we were all in lockdown. Supermarkets were basically with very limited options for food, toilet paper, et cetera, et cetera. But we were forced to stay home, work from home, do all of our activities from home. Thank God people did take it very serious. And for the most part of the people, you would not see nobody on the streets. People did stay home. And it was shocking. It was shocking because we all had plans, and out of the blue, basically just this virus hit. Nobody knew exactly what it was, how it was.
But by the way, you mentioned toilet paper. So
Yes.
what was going on with toilet paper in the United States? Why?
why toilet paper? Yeah, do we still have that
It's
question?
funny. I'll tell you something. Probably 5 times a year, at least in the area where I live, they'll be like, "Oh, a hurricane," or a storm is coming, or a snowstorm, right? And if it's gonna snow, I don't know why. You go to the supermarket and there's never toilet paper. It's the funniest thing. I don't know why, but thank God before this happened, I had just bought a huge package, and then it's funny, I know, but it's funny
You did
because
that too.
yeah, no, I was right on time. I don't have an explanation. It's just people go for the toilet paper first and food, I think.
And you
What-
also mentioned that a lot of people took the rules seriously and they stayed at home. But there are a lot of people who work in the government in Washington, D.C. So did they also work from home?
Yes. So what they did over here is they said either you're an essential worker or a non-essential worker. So even if you work for government, you have to work from home. The only people that were having to go to work were people like doctors or people that worked in construction, plumbing, air conditioning. So
Mhm.
some of my friends that work at government, they were all working from home.
Any exciting stories from that? How Zoom didn't work, or how kids were interrupting important meetings?
I'll tell you a funny story that happened to me yesterday. So 45 minutes from where I live, me and my business partner have a barn with horses, and I was working from there, and I was in a conference call, and his twin little boys that are 2 years old walked into the office where I was working, and they opened the door, and they had a stick on their hand. They were like, Uncle Dario, Uncle Dario, Uncle Dario, and I'm like, shh, and they were like, ah, and the person that I was with on the phone, it was the first time I was speaking to him. So he's like, hey, are you having a party over there? And I'm like, no, no, no. And I said, no. And I said, it's just, the little kids, la la. And it was so funny because then I'm trying to get the kids to be quiet. So I get near them and I'm like, shh. And one of them just hits me with a stick. Boom! I'm like, shh. So it was the funniest thing because I forgot I was on the call and I'm like, ow! And he's like, sir, are you okay?
Was it a video call or not?
I'm sorry?
Was it a video call?
No, it was not. But I did for example, so I was raised in Mexico and I do a lot of work with Mexico. And for example, in one meeting, it was an open meeting to the public with some congressmen and congresswomen, and she thought that she had muted the video, and she went and like didn't even care and took a shower and this and that. And when she got out of the shower, she was naked and she walked into the video. Yeah.
What about the
So
plans?
maybe
You said like everything started, people had their year plans, like 220. What's planned for you?
Yes. So it's
And
funny because my plans this year were to travel a lot, and basically this, not that it ruined it all, but it did affect my plans because also my businesses got shut down. So I had to reinvent myself and find new ways to make income. So with this said, basically, one of the things I do is that I have properties that I rent for Airbnb. And within 2 days, I had 45 cancellations. And in a week, everything was canceled. And also my other business was completely shut down. So
what business is it, if you can tell us?
yeah, no, absolutely. It's a nightclub.
What's
No,
the
no, no.
name of the nightclub?
It's called The Living Room.
Was it popular?
Yes, the most popular in the city. But yeah, but it's sad because basically since it's a nightclub, we were forced to close. And now since usually it's a lot of people together, we're going to be the last type of business to open.
mm-hmm.
So it is going to take time, and it did change a lot of plans. But that actually motivated me to redefine myself and look for new ways to generate income. And with a group of friends that were actually struggling too, and people that I admire very much because they're very hard workers, we opened a company. So we started seeing that a lot of people would ask me, Dario, do you have stuff, what we call the PPP, which is all the
Okay.
stuff for the COVID? And Dario, do you have this? Do you have that? Because from another of my businesses, I used to sell medical products to a country. So they were like, can you find me this? Can you find me that? And I started noticing that a lot of people were trying to buy like face masks or respirators and basically overprice them and sell them to somebody else. And it really made me mad because it was people taking advantage of a situation where others are dying and you're trying to become a millionaire here. So it really, I mean, it got me very mad. And I just took it personal and I opened a company with these guys. And what we did is that we all need to make an income, but we cut down middlemen. We speak directly to distributors. We sell directly to final buyers. And the best thing of all is that we take 1 penny of utility.
Where did you find the suppliers?
That's a very good question. I probably talked to around 50 different suppliers in every part of the world: India, Japan, Korea, China, US, Mexico, Colombia, everywhere.
Are you going to continue this business even when it's over?
Yes, yes, because now I got very hooked on it, and there's several opportunities coming up. So I'm even developing a new product that's not in the market yet, with some friends in Mexico, and we're developing a whole new product. I can't tell you guys because I can't tell you,
Maybe
but
that's a vaccine. We all
I
need
know.
that.
No, 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 not a vaccine. I wish it was a vaccine. But no, but it's to help with this COVID, and it's something that will be very affordable and very helpful for families.
And the whole world is now talking about the protests in the United States. How do you feel about it? Also, you're the owner of the property in the downtown.
There has been a lot of riots. It's sad because what happened is that one policeman tried to arrest another civilian. This civilian was Black. At the end of the day, he died. And it's not only that he died, but basically he got murdered because he was telling the policeman he couldn't breathe, and he kept on putting his knee on his neck, which asphyxiated it. That is something terrible. That is something unacceptable. Being a person of color, white, Black, brown, whatever it is, what that policeman did was not acceptable. Now, with that said, there needs to be justice done. And it does not matter if it was a Black person, a white person, a brown person, or a pink person. So the fact that people are on the streets protesting and doing silent protests, I respect that very much. Now, what I am against is the fact of people rioting. This is a separate group of people that they organized on Facebook and other platforms. They have secret groups. They organize themselves, and what they do is that they just take advantage of situations like this. They were basically breaking into businesses, tearing up stuff, monuments, business, government buildings, and they were just doing it to actually cause damage. And the worst part of all is that they're complaining about, they don't treat Black people the right way. But a lot of businesses that they destroyed are Black owned. They're taking advantage of the situation that somebody died to go and create this disaster. And the worst part of all is that these are the people that most of the time come and file for unemployment, come and file for government help. Well, all of those programs, their budgets are going to be lowered because now government is going to have to invest in fixing all the damages that these people have done around the country. So that is something I'm against. But doing justice for the person, the gentleman that died, that is something that needs to happen.
So is there already a lot of damage in Washington, D.C., and did it become more peaceful or not, or the riots still going on?
Yes, there is a lot of damage. They burnt police cars, they burnt businesses down, they tore a lot of businesses, they broke into a lot of businesses, a lot of government buildings, they graffitied them, a lot of monuments, they graffitied them.
And how do they protect the White House right now?
Well, there is, they did have like fences. Some of them were brought down, and there's a lot of police and military. And it's just sad. It's sad because that's not a way of gaining respect. That's not a way of making a point. That's a way of generating more anger. And I believe that, like even yesterday, there was a huge protest that actually was a silent protest, and people walked down the main streets of Washington, D.C. And it was thousands of people. Things like this create more impact. When I was watching it on the news, I would see the riots and I was just like mad. And then when I saw these protests that were silent, peaceful protests with thousands of people walking on the streets, kneeling down, it's so impactful and it makes such a big statement. And it made me and helped me like understand even more, because obviously I am a minority in the US, but at times I feel like I don't feel racism so much as other people do. So I it does help you, understand more and more the pain that they have.
I can see you're a very positive guy. What keeps you on the bright side?
Well, honestly, it's all mindset. I'm happy that, I'm staying at home. I'm enjoying my apartment, because usually I just work so much that I get home, walk my dog, change, and go back out to work. There's days, usually I get home between 8 or 9 p.m. from work. And on the weekends, I get home at 3, 4 a.m. because of the nightclub. So I am actually being able to enjoy my apartment. I am working out every single day. I am eating healthy food. I know what I'm eating because I'm cooking it all. And it just makes me happy. I'm having more time to read, more time to focus on the new business. And I enjoy it so much.
Thank you for the nice
Thank
chat.
you.
Yeah.
No, thank you, girls. I wish you guys the best. We'll be in contact, and you guys are doing a great job. So keep it up, okay? Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye. And now let's move to the West Coast.
Hi,
Hi there.
Hello.
how you doing?
Do you recognize the places we are at?
Santa Monica, what? Woo, woo.
Yeah,
Here.
one of my favorite places in LA.
Really? It's a fun
Yes.
place. Good beach for the coronavirus. Just keep social distance,
Tell
Oh
us
boy.
everything about the current situation in LA.
Yeah. Oh boy, it's a lot to tell. You guys got like 6 hours?
Can you tell us more
I go on
about your
bike
work?
rides. Sure. I do. I started a company called Conscious Communities. So when I was living in Chicago, I started learning about an organization called Conscious Capitalism. So Conscious Capitalism talks about how a business, as they make more money, instead of taking all the profits for themselves, they actually give some of the money out to the other stakeholders. So by doing that, that's what's best for the long-term viability of the company. And so I've kind of taken those principles and I'm trying to apply them to real estate. So now I feel like a lot of developments are so focused on short-term profit. They're focused on, I want to make the most money when I complete the building. I want to, build it, and as soon as I complete it, I lease it out and I sell it. And I feel like the other stakeholders affected by the development are kind of left by the wayside. And so I feel like if I focus on those other stakeholders, the residents, the company's employees, my company's employees, the community, and the environment, as well as my investors, then that's what's best for everyone, and so it's best for the project in the long run too. So, thinking about how does this project affect the surrounding community, like the use I'm putting in, am I providing, like, how are the residents going to like it? What about in 5 years, 10 years? What kind of materials am I using? Are they sustainable? What if this amenities, this space, this common area space that I build, what about in 5 years if it's no longer being used? Can it be like repurposed into something that's more usable? How does it, just all these things, trying to be conscious and thoughtful about your development. I would like to redefine how we live. And so using like the smart home automation and, efficient spaces and tiny home, like housing principles and like thoughtful design to kind of like redefine the space that we live in. So.
But were you able to continue your work during the pandemic, or you had to pause it?
Well, one of my projects, it was tough because like I couldn't drive up to where it was located. I couldn't get like people on site. So things definitely were on pause, and then that project died. So, but I can do most of my work at this stage, I can do from my computer. So it was, I couldn't go into my office though. So I had to create a home office environment. And that's something I think is going to change in the future. Is about for the homes we live in is about creating like a home office space that you can kind of like work out of. I think we have to create ways, creative ways where people can work at home if they need to. Working from home has become more popular. So Twitter just announced that like employees can now work from home permanently. They don't need to work in the office anymore. Salesforce announced that employees can work from home until the end of the year, and then possibly after that. And so it's become clear that like companies can be just as productive with some of their employees working from home some of the time. At the same time, it would allow like these companies to save money on leasing office space that is really expensive for the companies. So I think this is a trend that will, prevail after the coronavirus ends.
So maybe you could tell us about the last trip you took.
The last trip I took. So I had a conference on the other side of the country, on the East Coast in Orlando, and I was there right before like things hit the fan. It was during the conference, the NBA was canceled for the year, and so I was like, "Oh wow, this is serious." And then I went to I actually had a wedding right after that in Mexico City. So I went to Mexico City. After that, I came back, and then the lockdown happened.
The wedding.
Yeah, it was in March. So middle of March. That is the week where things really started to lock down across the United States.
So what happened after that?
So you attended one of the last weddings in 2020, apparently.
Yeah, and I had 2 more weddings and 2 bachelor parties planned that have both been canceled or rain checked to next year.
Okay, but so what happened? You came back and things started to escalate.
Yeah, I came back.
How is life since then?
It's been good. Well, so things came back, and I was working hard on a project that basically like went into standstill for a little bit, and I was kind of at home, not unsure what was going to happen. So I was like, threw up my papers, and I was like, I got out like some video games out of storage I haven't played in a while, and I started playing video games for a week. And then I realized I was like, I cannot just be here like playing video games. I felt that I wanted to like make a change a little bit. And so I started like working on like my habits and started reading a few books and stuff like that. And so I like stopped drinking alcohol. And then about a month after that, I stopped drinking caffeine and slowly been like stepping off those things. I've also worked on setting up my apartment. So my apartment's like very nice, like tidy and stuff. I set up a home gym. I've been setting up smart home automation. So like when I wake up in the morning, if I wake up at like 5:30, I want from 5:15 to 5:30 for my lights to slowly dim on. And then at 5:30, I want my blinds to come up. And then I want my daily podcast start playing. So like it'll play like, here's the weather today. Here is like the top news articles. And then it'll play these daily podcasts that I listen to every day. So it kind of like gets my day started like more efficiently. I see home automation becoming a big thing over like the next 10 years through Amazon, Google, and Apple are all investing heavily in that area.
Is your smart house going to say something right now? Like about to say, maybe like a coffee will start?
Well, yeah. I can be like, okay, Google, what's the weather today?
In Culver City, it'll be partly cloudy with a forecasted high of 78 and a low of 63.
Can I also ask a question from your smart house?
All right, let's give it a go. You gotta say, okay, Google, and then you say the question.
Okay, Google, what time is it in Moscow?
The time in Moscow, Russia is 7:14 p.m.
Okay, Google, make it plus 27 Celsius in Moscow.
Okay, Google, pour me some wine.
Okay, Google, do the laundry.
Okay, Google, invent the vaccine against COVID.
Crazy technology.
Very smart house. Very smart house.
Very smart house. Yeah.
So in LA, everything is still closed, right?
Yeah. So things have slowly been opening up. Like parks are now open, which is cool. Restaurants have always been open for delivery or for takeout. So they're slowly allowing, I think, people to eat on patio space, outdoor patio space. Markets have always been open. Target's always been open, all those essential services, stuff like that. Retail stores are now like open, but they usually control how many people can go in and out, basically.
But are they actually now opened, these retail stores, or are they closed again due to the riots?
They're I'd say most of them are currently closed due to the riots. So right now at this time they're closed. But there's like been a curfew. So like my city of Culver City, where I specifically live, which is right in Santa Monica, has had like a 4 p.m. curfew where you're supposed to be like in your house by like 4 p.m. You know, and then like yesterday it was 6. Los Angeles, Los Angeles was 9 o'clock yesterday. So, but that's like if you're, if you need to get home from work or stuff like that, like they're not gonna like stop you and arrest you. It's just like, ask people like their own goodwill to like go home at the right times and stuff like that, So it's just easier for like, emergency services to get around.
And has it been severe in your city? Like whether any damages caused?
My city hasn't been touched at all, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But Culver City is a much smaller city. So what's happened with like the riots is that there are the protests, the very peaceful protests, right? I think those are, it's kind of sad that the riots drown out the message that the protests are, these peaceful protests are trying to get through. But then there's protests, and then there's the people who are, opportunists who see this as an opportunity to loot and to steal things and stuff like that. And so what they've been doing is they've been targeting like the high retail. This is for LA specifically. They've been targeting the high retail areas, and Culver City just doesn't really have that. So it seems like they've avoided this area. But yeah, it's really sad. It's a really tough economic situation that we're in right now. Maybe some people who previously had, a job, they didn't have very much savings, and they lose their job, we're giving out unemployment, but maybe it's not enough for some people. LA is a really expensive place to live. And I feel like some people just feel, a little lost, like the system has failed them, so I can't.
You think that's what caused them to go out on the streets? And
I can't possibly understand, all I can do is speculate, right? Because there are a lot of things going on that are causing it. But I think that, that could possibly be one of them. People are frustrated with the system. Maybe that's a reason why people feel like, like we've been trying to silently protest for all these years and nothing's been changing.
We saw that you have participated in Blackout Tuesday on your
Yes.
social media as well. So what does it mean for you?
For me, it resembles standing with African Americans and people, minorities, that they all matter just as much as everyone else. I feel like the system that we have in place, it's based on older values. For example, the Minneapolis police officer that killed George Floyd, the one who had his knee on George Floyd's neck, he had 17 complaints against him in his 19-year history. And the vast number of them had no reprimands, no slaps on the wrist or no suspensions or no fines. And it seems like the system in place protects the police officers too much. And so like, for example, there's like when the police officer is accused of something and they go in front of like a committee, to be reprimanded, be punished. A lot of times it results to like what happened like in prior precedents. Like, well, this happened in a prior example, a prior case. So since that happened then, like that's what's going to happen to you. Well, it's like how was happening 15, 20, 30 years ago. Things have changed a little bit, right? But we're still based on those older systems. And like the police union, there's these unions that their job is to protect police jobs, and these are often led by old school law and older individuals who are, much more lenient towards the policeman and allowing the policeman, because they think that if you handcuff if you get the policeman in trouble for things, then the policeman will, like they'll hold back from shooting or like, from protecting themselves, but I think that they are just excessive with their force. And there's been some studies to show that they have been excessive. And I see a systematic of like racism in this country. And when you look at like the wealth gap between, you know, like African American individuals, like white individuals, the total net worth of the average African American individual is like 17,000. Total net worth of like a white individual is 170,000. So that's 10 times. Now, a lot of that's because, you know, like wealth creates wealth, you know, over time, right? Because it grows. And so when slavery ended, you know, it's like the white individual still kept all the wealth from like slavery, for example, you know, where the black individuals basically had to go out and just like figure things out. You know, and then over the years, there's been some policies that have been in place that have, you know, continued to be in favor of white individuals. Like, for example, something called redlining, where a neighborhood is redlined. This is back in the 50s and 60s. A neighborhood is redlined, and they would be like, all right, this neighborhood here is for black individuals, you know, and so we're not going to give loans to black individuals outside of these redlined neighborhoods. You know, and even in those neighborhoods, it was still harder to get like a loan. And so, and then it's, there's been some studies show that African-American individuals actually have, like, they are more likely to get a subprime mortgage over a white individual, even though all else is equal, like the same credit history and stuff like that. You know, they're more likely to get a mortgage that over time, the interest rate's going to increase. Instead of being like fixed at like 4%, it's a mortgage that is viewed at riskier. And so it's like the interest rate will go up higher over time, making it more likely for that individual to default on the loan. All these kinds of things have made it much more difficult for black individuals basically to grow wealth. And there's racism, I believe. And this one, this is just my opinion. I haven't found specific sources for this, but I think among like the job market and like finding a job, I just believe it's easier, or the perception, if like, you know, you're a white individual or African American individual. So I think those are like these things in our culture that I think need to change. So that's why I support it.
Have you witnessed any peaceful protests?
I went to a protest this last weekend. It's the LGBTQ protest in West Hollywood. They hold this protest every year. Not a protest, they hold this march every year for LGBTQ rights. But this year they extended it to, or they canceled that, and they're holding a protest instead for Black Lives Matter. It's kind of like a combo effort. So I wanted to, you know, peacefully, you know, witness and protest along with them. And I've made a few donations. I've been talking to like a lot of friends. I've been talking to like family members and stuff like that, and trying to, you know, raise awareness. Always.
How did it look? Do people like keep the social distance, or it's all people are together? And
you know, most people are wearing masks, but I'd say that people aren't like staying like 6 feet apart typically. For most of at least the protests that I went to, and then the other protests I've seen on the news and stuff like that. I am definitely a little concerned that the virus is gonna start, you know, the spread is gonna start increasing again. But as we start opening up the economy and everything else like that, I think it was, you know, it was going to happen anyways. And I think that it's been great that it's bringing so much awareness to all these issues.
So people are ready to put their health at risk to get the message through.
I'd say some people definitely are. Yeah, I think they feel that it's an issue that can't wait for the virus to be contained, you know, and all that kind of stuff, right? It's like it's an issue that needs to be, you know, come up and needs to be addressed now.
But you said you donated to a few things. What are they exactly?
Yeah, so I donated to the funds that there's this fund. It invests in, or it gives money to a bunch of different charities throughout the United States that are basically creating funds for bailing out individuals who have been arrested for doing the protests and stuff. And so that's something that I feel like it's not fair that a lot of these individuals have basically been like rounded up and like thrown in jail, you know, and then now have this on the record. Now it like costs money to bail them out. They have like future court dates and stuff like that. And then there was also a station that invests in kind of like giving like scholarship funds to African Americans and stuff like that for like education.
Well, I think it's been a good talk, and we learned something new about the situation in USA. It was really interesting for us. And
Thank you.
you're doing a good thing, and I wish you luck in all your projects.
Thank you again for the talk.
You got it. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. All
Have a
right.
great day.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you.
Bye-bye.
You too.
We hope this episode was useful for you, and it will help you stay positive and motivated. Remember, there is always the way.
Thanks for watching. Stay safe.